Technologists. Tonight we are checking out the Kawai K3 and Korg DW-8000 tucked in underneath here. And what is so phenomenal about these synths are how reasonable they are for synthesizers from the 80s. So today I checked out on Guitar Center, there's one of these, a Kawai K3 for $650. And then even better than that on Guitar Center, there is a Korg DW-8000 for $500, which is an incredible price point for a synthesizer that has as much as these synths have. They are hybrid architecture, meaning that they have digital oscillators with analog filters. So these are not digital synthesizers. They have analog filters. They have the best filter Korg ever made built into this one, and the SSM filter adjacent to something like what was used in the Prophet 5 and PPG waves. So as when people ask me what are the best vintage synthesizers to buy, these are almost always at the top of the list because they are so reasonably priced. You can still get them for a decent price. They're not crazy, but they are amazing. And so tonight we're going to be checking out both of them and comparing the different sounds. And yeah, they're just really great. So I think I can pull up an initialize patch here. What is it? Let's try this one. There we are. And then I'm using a retroactive DW8 key. And what that's going to let me do is just create a scratch patch here. And for some reason, I just have to turn the glide down and the level of the effects and drop the octave here. And you can hear in the middle range here, the sawtooth oscillators are very similar. Brian McCullough, how much worse is the DW-8000? 6000 came out the same year as the 8000, 1985, and it is a very cool synthesizer. It has half the number of waves. However, it has an analog chorus. So in some ways, it kind of beats out the DW-8000. It doesn't have aftertouch or velocity as well. I think it's a really extremely cool synthesizer. The only problem with it is DW-8000s are so reasonably priced. Like I said, today you could get one of these for $500. It's hard to buy any vintage synthesizer for $500. So if you can beat that price with the DW-6000, that's great, right? Really cool synth. But for a price that cheap, you might as well just go with the DW-8000 in my opinion. So what we're going to do is we will start with the oscillators, and we're going to compare the sawtooth wave because we're familiar with sawtooth waves, right? But not just that, it's also the case that we'll be able to hear some of the artifacting that comes from the low fidelity of the oscillators. And I love the sound of digital oscillators from the 80s because they had so little to work with, and you just hear how it breaks up in this really beautiful, gritty, glassy sort of way that is very hard to capture with something like a VST. So anyways, enough rambling. Let's check out how this sounds in the lowest end here. So without a doubt, you can hear that on the lowest note, the DW-8000 is going to have much more fidelity. You can hear the aliasing, but it is higher. Can you guys hear that really high little whine, machine whine? I'm guessing at around like 12K or so. Little ring up there that you wouldn't hear with an analog synth. On the other hand, K3, really mangled waveform. That doesn't sound all that much like a sawtooth wave. It almost sounds organ or bell adjacent. And that's just because as you go that low on the keyboard, you just really lose all of that fidelity in a good way. You can hear a lot more noise. Again, that's a low bit depth, I'm sorry. Right? I agree, Pliskin, and that's why I love it. I love industrial synths. Moving up an octave. At this point, the aliasing is above what's audible or above what's being grabbed by the filter, pretty much, on the DW-8000, and it more or less just sounds like an analog sawtooth wave. It sounds really good, actually. You wouldn't know it's a digital wave just off of that. Walter, welcome to the stream. What bit rate did they use on these two? I don't know the exact bit rate. Common ones were divisions of like 33 or something. So that's probably would be my guess, but it doesn't matter as much as you can hear that on the K3, the difference in timbre is just crazy. So I'm guessing, I can't promise this, that the bit rate is worse on the K3, which is positive or negative. Again, almost gives it that bell-like tone. Moving up an octave again. Here, you can hear that it's more or less identical. Maybe a little fatter on the K3. Sari, welcome to the stream. So from C3 and up, it's pretty identical, I think. Let's see. You can hear that the K3's filter does not let the highest frequencies through, which makes it sound a little more analog, ironically. And moving up again. Interesting little differences in intermodular distortion you can hear at the very high frequencies, but nothing I would lose sleep over. So up here. Right? And then playing the same chords. Yeah, you can hear it's actually a lot cleaner on the DW-8000. A lot more high end coming through. And I just want to clarify and make sure if I go to the parameter for the cutoff and open it up all the way. Yep. That is just simply as bright as this gets. I could try the trick of increasing the envelope amount all the way, and then the VCF sustain is all the way up, and nothing changes. So we know that that's just as bright as the synthesizer gets, and that's not a problem with a digital oscillator-based synthesizer, because you want to shave off. The name of the game here is adding the warmth of that analog filter to be able to shave off those frequencies. Anyways, moving over to the balance here, let me just make sure oscillator wave 2 is also a sawtooth, which it is. And we can now bring the balance to 50-50. And you'll notice not much of a difference at all. I don't think I hear a difference. I think we have to increase the detune amount. And now we can hear. Thank you, Pliskin. OEO, welcome to the stream. $300 is a great price, Sari. Welcome to the stream, Crystal Love. Good to see you. Really excited. Yes, the aliasing in the oscillators is part of the charm, and what is incredible is just how great they both sound, but for different reasons. Anyways, jumping over to the DW-8000, we can go over here and bring in oscillator 2. And then same thing, we don't really hear a difference until we start adding detune. I'm not sure, but it feels like there's more steps of resolution in the detune. It could also just be that the maximum detune is more. Immediately, they actually sound pretty similar, but the lushness on the DW-8000 is so good. Why don't we try bringing the cutoff of the filter on the DW-8000 down to try to match the tone a little closer. Very hard to actually nail that difference. DW-8000 does just sound really good, and that should immediately clue you in to the fact that synthesizers like this, just because they are not expensive, does not mean that you can't get really incredible sounds out of them. So that is the Sawtooth waves, a little bit of the difference between the aliasing that will carry over into every single wave that we check out from here on, because obviously that aliasing is inherent to the synthesizer, not baked into the wave table that's being looked up there. Well, it kind of is, but you know what I mean. So I believe the DW-8000 has about 16 waves, and I think the K3 has about double that. So what we'll do is oscillator 2, bring up oscillator 1, and then we'll just move through the waves so you guys can hear all of the different waves. I'm not going to bother with the names of the waves. This is just so you guys can hear what they kind of sound like. That's a square wave, right? You know what? We should take a second and just do the same thing over here with the square wave in particular. Let's be specific to that and then change this wave. So the square wave is such an important part of synthesis, we should take a second and just compare the two. So again, you have that sort of bell-like tone to the lowest register. It sounds like a pretty good recreation of an analog square wave. Even there, you get a little bit more bite from the thing. Yeah, so that's just a quick comparison of those waves. Jumping back to the DW-8000, let's check out a few more of the waves here. So it's like an E-piano type thing. More, I believe these oscillators were derived from additive synthesis, so you're hearing them increase the actual number of harmonics there, giving you that sort of organ tone. Can I get some scum organs in the chat? That's a very saxophone-y type of sound. Moving forward. Very organ-y. Adam, that's really cool about your DIY controller. I need to check that out still. All sorts of different interesting, really kind of, that's such a reedy tone. Almost like a vocally sort of automaton sound. Love to see those scum organs, baby. That's a very vocally type tone, like a... Right? Lots of high end there. Love this bell waveform. I use this all the time. This is one of my favorite waveforms, just because no matter how you play it, oh, and this is another good one to compare. So this is a sine wave. And this will again kind of highlight how dirty the waves on the K3 are. So I think this value is sine wave. Wow. Like, listen to the amount of noise in there. As we drop all the way down. Just the clarity of the sine wave on the DW-8000. I mean, you can hear, it's not perfect, right? You can hear that little bit of like machiney sort of sound, but it's pretty pulled back. It's not the type of thing you would probably notice if you weren't, you know, listening to a stream like this, checking out these synths in solo. If you're listening to a song, it's probably not going to be noticeable. Conversely, on the K3, that is noticeable. I mean, incredible amount of noise. Whereas comparing that with the there's some noise in there. It's not a pure oscillator like you would get on an analog synth, but it's not bad. Paul, yes. So there's analog filter on both of these vintage synthesizers, which makes them so coveted. It's the best filter Korg ever made. Went into the DW-8000. That's this synth down here. I'm controlling it with a retroactive DW-8P. And SSM, the makers of the filters of the original Prophet 5. This is the 2044 filter that went into this guy, as opposed to a 2040 filter that went into the Prophet 5's Rev 1 and 2. But it's basically the same type of sound, more or less. And SSM filters are super coveted. They're used in the PPG Wave as well. I want to say the Octave Plateau as well. So definitely a super cool thing. Jumping over to the Kawai K3, we're going to have more sounds to check out. So making sure that we're over here. Let's go all the way to the beginning. And I hear nothing. Oh yeah, you can turn your oscillators off, that's why. So you'll notice a lot of these are nastier sounding, and that's because, again, the idea with subtractive synthesis, especially with a synth like this, is you want a super gnarly harmonic full sound that you can then warm up with the incredible filter built into this. So it's not a bad thing if some of these are a little bit like ear cancer on the first pass. That's kind of adjacent to the DW-8000's sort of more reedy sound. Very cool kind of, this is more like a PPG Wave type of vocal wavetable. Big Kraftwerk vibes off of that. Definitely kind of in that bell territory. Fucking scum organs. Interesting. I hear the aliasing come in higher up here, so I don't really notice aliasing, but around here you can hear that real whiny sort of tone creeps in. That's a really great sort of formanty, sawtoothy thing. Oh, that one's really good. What is that? That's wave 10. Let's go ahead and put the second oscillator on wave 10. And, whoop, no, that's not wave 10. Wave 10, and bring the balance in again so we can hear a little of that nice detune. And then bring the detune down a bit because that's a little annoying. I love how that sounds. That sounds really beautiful. Anyways, going back to what we were doing, oscillator 1. This one, 11, is great too. That has that automaton-y type thing to it, a little formanty. This would be good for like a bass line, like a nice warm bass sound. Something like that. Some of these sounds might be useful for pianos actually, because you want a kind of a thinner sound for a piano. I definitely get the formanty sort of nature from the K3 more than the DW-8000. I think the DW-8000, they were more focused on sampling stuff like woodwinds and instruments and stuff. Here you definitely get more vocal formant type things. Right? Sounds good. I actually didn't know that. Super cool. I love these like real high, it's not aliasing, but just really high harmonics on this. And then maybe some aliasing. Right? Some of these, there's a lot more thinner ones too, which I don't necessarily love. Wow. And that's because we're getting these waves derived from additive synthesis. Ooh. Oh, it's kind of a fun little shaved off sound. Not bad. Noise. Right, and we can do that same sort of wave sequency type sound. I actually have that card, Dana. I just don't use it because I don't really care. By the way, guys, can I get a scum cheers in the chat? I'm going to be checking out this Collective Arts Botany tonight, but you guys should have whatever you want. Anyways, I just want to say a cheers to everybody who makes Wednesday nights here on YouTube. Freaking amazing. I appreciate you guys so much. Can I get some scum cheers in the chat? Oh, that's awesome. It's kind of like a blueberry sort of thing. Oh, I love that. Thank you guys so much for being a part of this live stream. You guys are all welcome here. This is Scum Night. We do it every Wednesday. Something synth related over here on the channel. If you haven't yet, like and subscribe, yada, yada, yada. You guys are tired of that shit, I'm sure. Moving on, I want to take a second, maybe with both synths, just to explore what kind of sounds we can get with a little bit of sound design, using just the waves and the VCA. I'm not going to use the filter at all, just so you guys can hear kind of like where the oscillators could take you, because the oscillators are different. Usually around this point, I would compare the filters. We'll do that. But I think you guys have heard me compare filters. I wouldn't be surprised if we've compared these exact combination of filters before, just in other synthesizers. So anyways, why don't we start off again. Whoa, JP8000's trying to run away. Let's pick a cool wave. Not that wave. I really like that one. It's it's organ adjacent for sure. Let's go ahead and check out another wave, and then just change this. Maybe we'll just use the sine wave. I don't know. All right, so we've got two different waves here. So what we have is something a little bit more interesting than just standard, a starting point like sawtooth or square waves. By the way, you guys should be able to see that even though this doesn't have as many knobs as a lot of modern synthesizers, it is very easy to edit. You just press the button and move the thing. It's much easier than the DW-8000 or the Alpha Juno. A lot of synths that have a bad reputation. This synth is very easy to edit. You don't need a programmer or anything. Although I'd be excited to try it if Rob puts out one from Retroactive. Conversely, the DW-8P from Retroactive is a great programmer and vastly expands the potential with the DW-8000. If you don't want to spend the money on a Retroactive programmer, though, you can use the controller panel, which is free. I've done a live stream with the K3, checking out the additive synthesis, because that's a thing, by the way. Kawai K3 can do additive synthesis completely independent from everything we're checking out tonight in the stream. It's just the type of thing you'd probably want a programmer for. The DW-8000, also, I've done a video checking out the controller panel with that, and they're both great. But anyways, enough about that. You should be able to see that that's a wonderful sound, but we just need a lot of release. Why don't we max the release out for fun? So that we have a little bit of room. Really beautiful pad. No filter, nothing. It's just immediately gorgeous, right? Bring the level down slightly here. Sort of sound. What we could do is bring the sustain down and just see what kind of decay shape we could get going. That's correct, Dana. So you actually can use Aftertouch to switch the balance of the oscillators, which is pretty crazy. That's over here, I think, in the pressure oscillator balance section. So let me see if I can demonstrate that actually real quick. So if I bring this all the way to the left and then increase this value, I think this will do it. What is it? Do I need to go the other way? It does respond to Aftertouch. Maybe my keypad doesn't have any? I don't remember exactly. Like this wave. But we'll mix in a little of the other one. And then we will change the range of the first oscillator. Oh, we have to do the coarse change here to get that difference. Make sure that range is all the way down. Ooh, we can actually take this way, way low. Wow, that's crazy. I didn't realize you could take the coarse tuning so far. Have a great night, Dana. Sounds very good, doesn't it? Right? And so far, we're still just dealing with oscillators and the VCA, right? ADSR, no filter or anything, right? Pretty crazy what can be done with just those ingredients. Why don't we do the same thing over on the DW-8000? We're going to end up in a very different place, but that's kind of the fun, is with the K3, I immediately sort of gravitate towards this more glassy sort of, I mean, it just sounds so good. doesn't really, it just sounds so good. Moving over to our friend, the DW-8000, why don't we do the same thing? Pick a cool waveform. So to me, this waveform is so cool. It's got that sort of woodwind saxophony. Good over there. We've got this sound over here on the DW-8000. Same thing, we can adjust the octaves of these. So that we're able to get some more really nice little timbres in there. There's like a little bit of ear buzz candy in that sound, I think. We've got 6-stage envelopes on the retroactive one, but we don't have to worry about that. We can just use the attack and release, right? Increase the release even further. Good question, Walter. The DW-8000 is lighter. I don't know by how many pounds. The K3 has this really solid case. It's just heavy. It's like built like a tank case. DW-8000's key bed is pretty terrible. I mean, it's not terrible, but it's definitely clacky. You know, it's that vintage synth thing. You don't buy a synth like the DW-8000 because you're like a crazy pianist who's trying to like rip through scales. It's, you know, it's a synth, so it's going to have a little bit more of that plastic vintage synth action, but still certainly playable. K3's got a better key bed, but it's somewhat, you know, just I don't think it's a FITAR. I think it's just got a couple of sticky notes there. We can mix in noise on the DW-8000 as opposed to it being its own oscillator, which is kind of nice, actually. Yeah, I would say it's very adjacent to the insonic clackiness sort of thing. In which, you know, we've got kind of two different types of sounds, right? Kind of miss the I don't need as much decay. I'll bring the sustain up on this volume a little bit more. Like character to it. I think one of the things too is just that the detune is so gentle. It's a very nice sort of detune. Totally different sound, of course, but that's kind of because of the different wavetables, right? me important that we're not just exploring comparing the sounds directly, which we do in a lot of streams here. I love doing that. But it's also important, like, how does the hardware sort of take you in a different direction? And for me, I love these sorts of woodwindy type things. On that synth, and over here, I really love these sort of bell. Down. Yeah, that's good because we have that octave difference there. So now that we have two completely different sounds, but that's kind of part of the fun, right? Let's involve the filter. So what we're going to do is bring the filter down on, let's play a chord here, and we're going to use a E major chord, and we'll bring the cutoff down and increase the resonance, right? So why don't we do that? If you guys want me to do a filter sweep, I will. I mean, I guess we should, right? So why don't we just do that first? Let's just do an octave. Bring the cutoff all the way down. And we will add some resonance. We'll do about 50% resonance first and just do a fun little filter sweep. And just like in our comparison with the SX240, this doesn't go that low. And as you crank the resonance, of course, we can go all the way into full self-oscillation, but if we don't, we have more of that, you know, just that sort of, we lose more bass on the sound. It's closer to a ladder filter. I would love to check out a VZ1 at some point. Same idea here. We're going to take the cutoff down. And you'll notice immediately a huge difference, right? So even with the resonance at 50%, actually, we do lose some low end. Maybe just level too, as I bring the resonance close to 100%. Let's take the resonance, bring the envelope down actually. There we go. Yeah, we can take the, with the envelope all the way down, we can take this further. Resonance all the way up, cutoff all the way up. We're stepping through it because I'm using the increment knob here, but it won't do that with the envelope. You'll hear that in a second, but it's just worth for checking out the sound, right? So resonance all the way up. I would say that the biggest difference that I'm hearing it's just a more powerful sort of sound on the filter because it loses less of that low end. It loses less signal overall. We could compensate by increasing the VCF here. Let's see. But I would say it's a little less feral. We'd still get some really crazy ghost type sounds. Right, so lots of compression and everything there. Bringing the resonance all the way down. We'll have to turn the level down, I think, but you know. Right, back over here. I mean, truthfully, even though SSM filters are considered to be the best filters in the vintage game, probably in large part to do with the way it was used in the PPG Wave and the Prophet 5's Revs 1 and 2, I actually just think the DW-8000 filter is just kind of unbeatable. It's probably the best filter. And I really love the SEM filters in the Oberheim Matrix 6, the Chroma Polaris, and the Ensoniq SQ80. So those are, to my ear, the best. K3 sounds really great, but it's probably just, as far as comparing the filters there, it's not quite all the way. The controller I have hooked up with the DW, could you use it with the K3 and would it make a difference? I actually can use it with the K3. You can map this to all sorts of different things. Would it make a difference to the stepping? No, because it's not making a difference to the stepping on the DW-8000 either. But both of these, again, as we get into actually checking out the envelopes on the filter, you hear that they're perfectly smooth. So going back to our little bell pad thing. Right, level, bring that down just slightly. Right, pretty cool. But let's bring the cutoff down now and add some attack, some decay. Bring the sustain down, bring the envelope amount all the way up. Right? Increase the decay, increase the release. Oh, I'm messing with the wrong thing over here. I need to be over here. Bringing out a little of that. Make sure the resonance is all the way off. So there's actually no resonance on that. Can I do any sort of key tracking on this? Yes, I can. I can use key tracking on the filter so it opens up a little bit more. So why don't we increase that? And then bring the cutoff down, right? Because right now... How's it going, Ricky? So now we're retaining the high end, but as we go low, we're keeping that high frequency information in there. So much low end. In fact, I'm actually going to use the high pass filter that's built into this that we don't have. I don't believe we have one on the DW-8000, so we can actually filter out. And it's a fully variable high pass too. So it's not like on the Jax 3P Juno 106 where you've got like 4 possible amounts. As we increase resonance here, let's just see if we get a difference that we like. Probably pull a little bit of that low cut out now. It's really great, just glassy, sort of unique sort of sound. But the problem that I'm having with it is I need a little bit of movement in here. I need a little bit of movement. So we're going to just add some LFO into the sound, okay? So now we can have a little bit of a warble. We can slow that speed down. And maybe bring the value, split the difference, just so we break up that sound a little. Let's play with the balance again now. Bring the release back a little. Machine Storm, welcome. Yes, well, so the DW-8000 is a more equivalent synth to the K3. I love the K4 as well, but that's a fully digital thing, and it's like way off in digital land. This is such a cool synth as far as being able to integrate so much like analog goodness into a little bit more of a digital sound. Yeah, it just sounds really great. However, looking at it now, I can definitely hear that I kind of wish it had a little bit more of the balls. So if we go back to like a sawtooth wave, right? Maybe mess with this wave too. Ooh. Maybe. Let's bring the level up a bit. And then bring the touch sensitivity down, actually. Or I'm sorry, the key tracking down. So we get a little darker sound on the top end now. A little bit more decay, perhaps, on the... We've sort of got this sort of thing going with the K3, this interesting sort of wavetable-y. sort of sound. It almost reminds me of Lethal Lava Land a little bit, if you guys know that that track. Esteban, thank you so much for supporting the channel, by the way, and welcome to the stream. How's it going? So taking it from there, let's add the most important element to this sound, which is going to be the chorus. And we can do a little comparison of the chorus as well. So I've got a few different values for the chorus here. So I'm going to go back to that E major chord. I would actually love to know if one of these two synths was used on the soundtrack of The Mummy, because I love that movie. Playing a lot of harmonic minor scales right now. By the way, Lauren, welcome to the stream. Or Loren, let me know how to pronounce your name. So comparing these different sounds. What we could do on the LFO is increase it to the oscillator so it's a little warbly. Increase the speed a little bit too. But also add a delay. Let's change up these waves again. They're starting to get a little bit like... something kind of nice, aren't we? It's interesting how it took this many steps to sort of get it there, right? Chris, welcome to the stream. Esteban, totally. I would love to one day get my hands on a Waldorf Microwave 1. I just don't have it yet. So we shall see. Jumping now over to my friend over here, the DW-8000. I have to say the DW-8000 just sounds so good, doesn't it? So to bring it into that character, let's bring down the filter, right? And then bring up the envelope amount. Adapt, manipulate. How's it going? My name's Alex. I don't know if you're saying hi to somebody else. The problem with the filter, like all things on the K3, what is that you're saying there afterwards? Also, by the way, Realities in the Raw, welcome to the stream. Right, if we increase the resonance. Oh, it just sounds so good, doesn't it? It's almost like a shame because it sounds so freaking good, doesn't it? we can bring up the chorus now. And there's going to be some interesting stuff that happens because how we adjust time, feedback, modulation rate, and modulation depth, right? So with the K3, we have a bunch of presets. With this, we have a bunch. And you can hear that if we increase the time a lot, as well as some feedback and some amount of mod rate and depth, we actually end up with something that sounds more like a delay. Oh. Oh, God, right? I mean, just how awesome does that sound? Just like that, right? Just incredible. That filter resonance is so good. We're still losing some volume, but I mean, just not really any like noticeable amount. They're stepping on both of these synths, but you don't hear it in the actual... God, that sounds good. Something similar to that. So the way I'm getting this sound is by turning the attack all the way down, bringing the sustain all the way down, pretty slow decay, not all the way. Cut off down, resonance, envelope all the way up, resonance pretty cranked. Let's go full decay. Pretty close, but man, oh, it's just mid-phase. I don't know what to think about the K5 because I've never owned one. Here would be my rough feelings on it. I used to have a Kawai K3 I didn't love the sound. Something about the presets, right? Now, I didn't love the presets on the Matrix 6, and that's now, I think, the GOAT as far as vintage analog synths goes, price to quality ratio. Only comparable with the Korg Poly 6 and the Chroma Polaris in terms of quality of sound. But the presets I didn't like that much. That was my experience with the K5000S, and the complexity in additive synthesis was difficult on that synth with a bunch of knobs. So now imagine that on a synth that doesn't have a bunch of knobs, and it just, that's the trouble with that one. If you're going to just use it for the presets, then, you know, that's cool. But yes. Yes, so the Nyctalopian. It's like tilapia, but night. How's it going? Welcome to the stream. Yeah, so that's always the problem with these streams, is that sometimes in different parts of the world, these synths go for wildly different prices. So yes, but when it comes to this, I'm really just impressed by the way that sounds. That filter is so good. Now that's using the effect as a delay, but if we bring the time all the way down, you'll hear this weird phasing thing, which won't really make a lot of sense. We actually turn the feedback all the way off. But as we increase mod depth and the rate, we can get sorts of actually like more chorusy type sounds. Sorry, it's just easy to get lost. Checking out some different sounds. Let's see how far we can take that. You actually get like this crazy warble out of it, right? Greetings from America, from Florida, the hellscape itself. Right, so that's a little intense. We could dial that back and we could have something more like a regular chorus. Man, it sounds so good. Some vibrato from the LFO. It really doesn't need it though. There's such a beautiful sort of, just from the D-tune is so great. I don't know. It's one of those interesting sort of debates about digital crystals as they affect DCO synths. I'm not sure how the crystal is split up. So like the idea is if you have more crystals, I've heard, and I hate spreading misinformation on the internet, but I've heard one of the differences between the DSS-1 and the DW-8000 is that the oscillators are not free running in the DSS-1 like they are in natural D-tune on it. I don't know if that's true, but it might be true. And it certainly, the D-tune sounds great on the DW-8000. I mean, right now, to be honest, and I love the K3, I think it's amazing. It hasn't stacked up as strongly as I thought it would against the Kawai SX240, which we checked out probably about a month ago on the stream. So it's a shootout between these two synths. Definitely worth checking out. Although there's almost no SX240s around anymore. It didn't quite hold up the way I was expecting it to. And then kind of the same thing here, where if you're just doing a comparison back to back, I kind of think the DW-8000, just like once you brought that filter in and the thickness and the clarity of the oscillators, the DW-8000 is just sounds so good. which is crazy because you can get one of these for like $500 currently, you know. Now, as we take this sound, so if I take this chord here, what the fuck kind of chord is that, Alex? Okay, so E major. As we increase the time, we're going to get different kinds of chorusing that'll then transition into delay. Versus this. And then we can get into some really crazy shit with a longer delay. Right? Then as we increase the time further, we have to reduce that mod depth down. Interestingly, any amount of mod depth seems to be too seasick for my liking. Yeah, any amount seems like too much. But just with that delay on it, it's so good. See if we can add a little bit in. Not my goal on the stream, but whoa, that's the wrong note for sure. What note am I playing here? That. So freaking good. I'm just constantly impressed by the synthesizer. We could add let's see here. Where is the aftertouch? Wow, that's really interesting. I don't know what's going wrong with there. There's some sort of glitchy, that's fucking beautiful. Aftertouch should not sound like that, but it's cool. Wow, I'd love to be able to emulate that. Yeah, like some sort of glitchy, like, that's awesome. I think it's some sort of problem with like the connections in that synth with the aftertouch, but essentially really awesome sound. Super cool. I mean, really, to me, I could keep going, and there's probably some examples where that would be valuable to someone, but I'm immediately struck by when we're comparing the chorus, the DW-8000 sounds freaking awesome. When we're comparing the oscillators, DW-8000 sounded awesome. We're comparing the filter, DW-8000 sounds awesome. a difference. $650 for a Kawai K3 today at Guitar Center. Does Guitar Center ship to France? Does anybody know that? I don't know how that works. Do they have Guitar Centers in France? But you can program this thing directly from the panel. There's no need for a programmer. Very intuitive. DW-8000, you're going to want to use a programmer or something like a controller panel. Like I said, I already did a video showing you what that's like. And it's not difficult. Basically the same thing. A lot of fun. The advantage of something like a DW-8P as well is the ability to store patches in this. So it's also a memory card, essentially. And you have the random patch generator, which we've checked out before on stream. We've done sound design streams with the DW-8000 and the Kawai K3. Yes. Let's see. Reality in the Raws says, yeah, it kind of seemed like it was going to the LFO, but that isn't a, oh, maybe it is. Maybe it is. Maybe it was. Let's see. It seems to be working now. Yeah. Sounds so good. I mean, just to be honest, it's crazy that the Aftertouch still works on this synth from 85. I haven't serviced it or anything. I haven't serviced either of these two synths. They just sound awesome, just like this. But I have to say, and I want to hear what you guys think. Of course, I always ask you guys to vote between the two. If like price was equal, which would you get? But it's strange. It's hard for me to say this because I love the Kawai K3 so much. I think it's an amazing synthesizer, but it's getting harder for me to love SSM filters. Maybe it's just because I don't have a Prophet 5 Rev 1 or 2 or a PPG Wave, but I kind of prefer, I think, the sound of Curtis chips, CEM chips, or even the Korg filter. I think just sounds so good. And I like the low fidelity nature of the Kawai K3 oscillators, but they're not really making me nut necessarily the way the DW-8000 is. And I'm shocked by that because the Kawai K3 always been one of my favorite synths. But today, in our little comparison, and we're only kind of comparing like a couple of things, but sort of seeing where the sounds could take me, it feels like it's hard to make a really bad sound with the DW-8000, and the K3 was taking a lot more work to sort of get there. So I want to ask you guys, of the two synthesizers, price being, you know, about the same, what do you guys think? What do you think is the difference there? DK, welcome. How's it going? For the same price, which would you rather? And we're going to go Kawai K3. Whoa, not K pound sign, but Korg DW-8000. I just want to know. I don't know if I'm alone here in believing this, but for me, it was definitely, hey, Ambient Knots, have a great night, okay? We're calling it a night too. A little early, especially with a nice intermission in there, but actually don't think I've ever had a Versus stream where I felt so sold on one or the other. Yeah. Look, I'm here's the thing. I am the biggest, like, I shout the praises of the K3 from the rooftops. Actually, in fact, true story, one of the guys who works at Synth City in Chicago bought a Kawai K3 because he watched my video. So, it's I love the K3 and what the K3 can do in the additive domain, because we never even got close to how you can design your own additive waves in the K3. You can do it in the DSS-1 as well, but it's not as deep as in the K3. If you get that controller panel for the K3 and really dive in there, that is a one-of-a-kind synth that allows you to do additive synthesis as well as with an analog filter from the 80s, with an SSM filter. I mean, that's something that's completely unique. Let me know if there's a single additive synthesizer with an analog filter from the 80s. What, maybe the Synclavier? I don't know. Yep, arpeggiator in the DW-8000. Let's see here. Said K3 because I already have a DW and still kind of want a K4. See, here's the thing. K4, phenomenal. That's my kind of like new favorite digital synth. Aside from the D50, of course, because I just think the D50 is perfection. Sounds the best. Wish it had a couple of more breathy industrial type sounds in it, but a little bit more of that digital K4 sound, K1, K4. But I would rather at this point, if I had to have one hybrid and or analog synth, it's probably the DW-8000. It sounds, I would argue, probably the Alpha Juno. Usually cheaper than an Alpha Juno. And I think like DW-8000 plus Kawai K4, what a fucking knockout combination those would be. Like that right there, those two synthesizers for less than $1,000, you could have pretty much like just nut freely, just constant. I don't know why I'm saying nuts so much this stream. Rallies in the Raw says, I never had a chance to get a DW, but I almost got a Poly 800, and I can see why I was interested. Emmanuel Cote, that's awesome. I appreciate it. $400 is sick. Mark Rouse loves his K4 and K5, but really want a K3. K3 is its own beast. K4, K1, K5, those are all going to kind of have a similar digital sound. K3 is its own thing, just like the Taiskyo slash Kawai SX210, 240, and the 400 are all going to kind of be in its own lane too. Chris Farrell says, two K4s on offer up for $200. One for $100 in Cali. I want one, but I'm so tight in cash. Well, you know, the good thing about the K4s is, despite maybe a little bit of inflation by my more recent videos, they still tend to sell for around that $400 mark. And hopefully the price will come down. I understand not having enough money for synths. Right now, I'm sort of stuck in synth repair purgatory. I'm waiting to hear back from Reverb about how they're going to hopefully compensate me for this synth that I just got. So I get it when you're like low on cash. If you ever get a chance to get a K4 and you're into the vintage digital thing, you're not going to be disappointed. It's so cool. Yeah, Sari says custom waves ability in the K3 is 4. Yeah, that's where the synth just gets like crazy, because then you can get those K5-esque sounds, like those additive spherical pads into something with an analog filter. It just gets crazy. Are we in a time shift? Could be the DSR on YouTube, so just you could refresh and see if there's something going on. Pretty sure I pushed the price up. Okay, so let's look at the poll results. 26 of you would prefer to have, or I'm sorry, of 26 votes, 58% would prefer the DW-8000 over the Kawai K3, which is, I think, about fair. A lot of the times we'll end up with these 40-60 splits on synths. Right now in this song, you're hearing actually the slap bass preset on the DW-8000. Isn't that a pretty good slap bass? Or bass, I don't think it's a slap really, but just like bass guitar. That's pretty crazy, right? Very good. I think I wiped the patch, unfortunately. I don't have it anymore, but it's a good patch. Yeah, being house poor is legit. Nick says, I wanted to vote for the K3, but the Korg wins for having more voices and more complex waveforms, and Depeche Mode used it. Yeah. Yen says, K5 sounds like a $50 synth mixed with a $5,000 synth. That's awesome. Yeah. So 27 votes. It's actually now down to 56% DW-8000, 44% K3. So, I mean, it sounds like for you guys, it's pretty close to 50-50. About as close to 50-50 as these ever get. And that's because they are just absolutely awesome synths, both of them. If you only had one, here's one thing. I know I might sound tonight like I have a little bit of a downward inflection in my voice for the K3. It's more just like the shock of my boy, the K3, maybe not holding up as much as I was expecting. If you're detecting that, someone else voted. It's even closer now. It's 54-46. 52%. It's just like the K3 is amazing, and if you only have a K3 and not a DW, I wouldn't necessarily feel like you need to run out and get it. But if you haven't bought either, DW-8000 for cheaper, but you probably need a programmer, so that's also kind of a thing. Sari asks if I'm going to be checking out Vast, any of the Kurtz files, like a K2000, right? And yes, at some point, yes, absolutely. Todd Phipps says the DW is great, but I love what I've been getting out of my K3. Has anybody, I'd be curious, has anybody used those, the Viper wave referencing? So there's a really cool guy, T-Sonic, who sampled the DW-8000, the K3, PPG wave, and put them all into wavetables you can use in Mini-Log XDs, Prologs, probably, NTS ones. Well, that's super cool. But yeah, K2000 is definitely vintage. For sure. This channel making sales. Yeah, I mean, there's no way to... Wow, we are 50-50. So 30 votes in, and it's a 50-50. I'm going to end the poll there just because that's pretty shocking. So 50% 50. I know my vote would be for the DW just because I found myself having less panel getting the sounds right. But it might also just be the retroactive programmer. It's so nice to have... his hands-on controls and just dial in that stuff really fast. I think that's one of the things is if you don't like a sound and it only takes a split second to change it, you don't notice it as much. When you're pressing the buttons, if you get lost or something on a membrane panel and moving the alpha dial, maybe it's just, it kind of can hurt a little bit more, so. 40 Thieves says you can even swap out the waveform chips in the DW-8000 for modern chips. Gonna do it one day. Just gonna need a EPROM burner. Yeah, how expensive is an EPROM burner? Because you can do the same thing with the Kawai R50E, of course. So that's something I need to check out. Midphase says the DW-8000 can sound incredible as well, and it's even less expensive. Yeah, for sure. If you can find one for sub 5, I mean, again, it's just sort of like, but it's gonna have that analog chorus, so that's gonna be even more incredible. Yes, Jens points out that the K3 probably has a beat as far as organs go, and the brass sounds are really good on the K3 as well. I totally agree with that. K2000 is a month of streams. Aquatic Borealis says, I still have not bought a vintage synth, and that is fine. For one thing, I'm going to be coming out with my vintage digital sample pack soon, so it's going to be vintage digital pads. It's going to be called a Revenant, and so we've sampled a bunch of stuff, and we're going to come out with a bunch of them. So that's basically going to be, a bunch of presets sampled and in sound font format. That way you can load it into something like a sampler, Contact, anything like that. Yeah, the membrane is the pain. Yeah, 50-50 on it. Isn't that crazy, Chris? But Aquatic, I mean, on that point, part of what I like about checking out gear is how it sounds. And there's no reason you couldn't get really similar sounds out of something like even your Deluge, right? It's kind of about how you tune your ear and tune the sounds you have to sound like that. I think that there are inherent differences between certain filter sounds and the way all of the elements kind of stack up. It can be difficult or more difficult to get like K3 sounds out of like a Hydra synth, for instance. You know, Hydra synth sounds so clean, right? But you could get there, I think. And I hope that this channel is an inspiration, not just to spending money on vintage synths, but also to actually wanting to make your own sounds and to make your synths have that kind of character, because so much of it is just like the way the vintage synths sound warm, right? Which kind of means not too much high end. So then sometimes that could be as simple as, I think of the Oberheim Matrix 6 versus Prophet 600 stream, where a simple cutoff adjustment, where I just didn't let the filter go quite as open as it could on the P6000, just made it sound so much better, just because it had that fat vintage analog thing. So even though it is a real analog synth, of course, when you open the filter up all the way, it's so bright, it's got so much fizz that it kind of sounds like a VST and didn't sound as good as the Matrix 6. That's kind of an example, or hopefully an encouragement, just to say that it's not, the sound is not necessarily something that can't be accomplished. If you like some of the sounds from the DW-8000 or the K3 today, I believe those sounds could be made with VSTs, could be made with modern hardware. It's just how, you know, certain pieces of hardware you're gonna have a harder time, you know, and certain things are gonna, you have to like massage a little more. But sometimes, you know, something like Omnisphere, Vital, Serum, all of those can be very powerful. Mid-Phase says the DSS-1 can put the DW-8000 to shame. One day I'll do a stream comparing the two, especially when Rob finally puts out the retroactive programmer for the DSS-1. I'd love to know if there's, you know, a difference there, aside from just that you can, obviously there's additive in the DSS-1 as well. The samples seem like the big difference there. 40 says there's an expansion for the R53 on eBay. Has all the ROMs for the R50 and R100 models. So my Kawai R53, very rare Japanese, has all three built in, so you could swap between them, which is super cool. Only a Japanese release, kind of a rare bird, but I mean it still sounds exactly the same as an R50, R50E, or the R100. Aquatic says the Take 5 is my favorite synth that I own. Just sounds beautiful. Yeah, and you know, the thing here again, I mean, Take 5, incredible. Also, you're gonna have a much more fun time than pressing membrane panels and stuff. But I just hope that sometimes you'll hear a sound, Aquatic, that, or anybody who's watching, they go, wow, that sounds really different. That sounds really cool. How would I make that on something like a Take 5? And if I can't do it with the Take 5, maybe I could do it with a digital synth that I can load some sort of more organy wavetable into, or glassier vintage digital thing. It's all about inspiring people. It's not about inspiring gear acquisition syndrome. I'm not trying to make people spend money frivolously. In a weird way, it makes me feel very happy that you haven't bought any vintage synths, Aquatic, because that to me says like, okay, you're listening to the channel, but you're not like impulsive. And you know, and maybe it inspires something, you know. Paul says ease of use and immediacy of tweakability is pretty important to me, and that's why I spend the money on the retroactive programmers, even though Dubstation 0 will tell you that an Ovation Mark II will get it done and you can use it one programmer for all of your synths. And yeah, and it's probably better, you know, but it's still, I just love the experience of using the retroactive. So I know I said earlier I don't care about that, but I guess I do. Reality of the Raw says there's no way a Hydro will sound like a K3, it's just too clean. That could be true, right? There could be times, but even then, okay, maybe you had some bit crushing, you know, some like a plugin like TAL DAC, right? I use that all the time, and that could be a cool way to add a little of that vintage digital character in. Yeah. Oh, it's for everything but the R53. Interesting. Yeah, microphone's trying to get away. Chris says, when I started building a studio, I want to make real sound original without using your computer. Granted, plugins are so easy and great sounding, but don't always hit the mark. Yeah, well, that's kind of the thing. And like, my encouragement is especially for producers, musicians, who feel a little bit stuck in a rut with whether there's software or even modern hardware. And they go, okay, I kind of know what this synth is going to sound like. And I bought a new synth, and you know, maybe I started with something like a Hydra synth or a Deluge digital, and it sounds good, but I wanted to get that analog thing, so I did that. And it's great, it sounds amazing, but it still kind of sounds like an analog synth. So what if I could get a $500 vintage hybrid synth? That's a completely different flavor. And that's what I kind of encourage people to do. It's like, there are some really great vintage synths. Maybe it's the vintage digital thing. It's like, okay, I've got a bunch of analog synths, but something like a Kawai K3 could integrate into my workflow and give me a completely unique flavor that you're not going to capture with VSTs or even modern stuff. Again, not saying that you can't get there, but it just takes more massaging with the modern stuff. Mid-phase, my main gripe with the DW-8000 is it only has 64 patches. Yes, and again, the retroactive programmer fixes that. Full Bucket Music has a free emulation of the DW-8000. That's another thing I should check out sometimes, just a comparison between. Full Bucket Music has a lot of cool stuff. Definitely have to check it out. Yeah. Mark says he ordered the ROM switch for his R100. Still haven't fixed a few buttons, but it's going strong. Playing hardware synths out is definitely worthwhile. Appreciate that, 40 Thieves. Just notice your name changed. I'm happy to call you 40 or 40 Thieves. By the way, I didn't mean to be disrespectful by calling you 40 Thieves. It's just I think of you as 40 Thieves. Reality of the Raw says, I have so much gear, analog and digital. It's not about that. It's about getting a vibe and finding an arrangement. I agree with that deeply. Nick says the channel is very educational. That's the goal. A little bit of edutainment. I try to be informative, but also say a bunch of bullshit. I do have a fascination with the DX7, Emu 2, and Prophet sounds. Yeah. And I think that's the other fun thing is, again, you probably can get there with the gear that you already have. I'm shocked all the time at the kind of stuff, but especially with the cheaper vintage stuff, I just think they're so cool. There's an authenticity there that you don't always get. And I guarantee you that if you get a vintage synth and you've only been using modern stuff, it will feel different. It might just be the placebo, the magic of having a piece of history, but it feels fucking different. I don't know. Could I be fooled in a blind test? I'm sure I could. By certain products. I mean, Talfa was crazy how close that was to an Alpha Juno. And the SQ80 emulation by Arturia is really great too. Little differences I could definitely hear with a resonance cranked. Yeah, the samples on the DSS one are so, I agree. Oh, okay, I get it. 40 Thieves, that's hilarious, actually. More colors for the pain pot. Good musicians can make music with that almost anything. On that note, I think that's a perfect place to leave it off, Aquatic. Good musicians can make music with almost anything, but goddamn, vintage synths are fun. I love you guys so very much. Continue to be excellent, and I will see you next week or in the next video, whatever happens first.